I think the Alton Towers resort is going to be sold off by Merlin Entertainments very, very soon, and it's becoming more and more likely every single day. Merlin Entertainments have operationally owned the Alton Towers resort for almost 20 years and have brought the park many new additions and investments over time. But now Merlin seem to just be giving up on the park and prioritising other parks that they have, outsourcing jobs, cancelling projects at Towers, and now even updating their terms and conditions with something extremely intriguing. Yeah, I just can't see Merlin sticking around at Alton Towers for much longer. So today we are going to put our speculation caps on and talk all about why it's highly likely that Merlin will sell Alton Towers in the coming months or years. And if they do, what that means for the park, because it could be really good for them or the total opposite. So be sure to watch till the end so you don't miss anything, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Oh, and also don't forget this. All that aside, let's now talk about history. Me when I'm now a history teacher. Alton Towers opened as a theme park in 1980 and only 10 years later was bought up by the Two Swords Group. They went on to add rides such as the Haunted House, Nemesis, and of course, the best ride on park, Runaway Mine Train, and many more throughout the years. But as Two Swords went through a bit of a change themselves, Merlin Entertainments stepped in the door and purchased the entire Two Swords Group, which now meant they were the owners of the park operationally. I'm going to say that a lot because you have to remember the Alton Towers resort itself, the land is not owned by Merlin, but the park is operationally ran and owned by them, if that makes any sense. And they've been running it for almost 20 years now, since 2007, having brought rides such as 13, The Smiler, Wicker Man, and bringing epic re-themes to life such as Curse at Alton Manor, Nemesis Reborn, and the world of David Walliams. So all of that then brings us up to today. The world's shortest history lesson, that was. And 2025 was one of the weirdest seasons I think we've ever had at Alton Towers. There was no events other than Scarefest and fireworks, a shift in focus from entertainment to whatever they shifted their focus to, I still don't know. At the start of the year, they added Toxicator, of course, and that opened its doors and also opened its floodgates. And then throughout the year, there was construction ramping up over at CBeebies Land on the brand new Bluey roller coaster coming next year. But it's just felt like throughout the entire year that Merlin have just sort of given up on Alton Towers, which is really, really sad to see. But we can't just go off of a feeling. We can't just say, oh, they've given up, I think, and I'm sad. Alton Towers is being sold. No, we need some actual evidence to support us in this statement. Now I feel like an English debate teacher. So let us go through the factual information. We already talked about this, but the park's entertainment being shifted is a big pointer in this, because we know Merlin have been pushing away shows and entertainment, but they've actually sort of passed on the entertainment department to another company, because earlier this year they announced that they were going to be outsourcing all entertainments to RWS Global, and entertainments is a big part of the park, so outsourcing that is a bit of a sign. But then again, a few years back they outsourced all the food offerings to Aramark, so I guess it's a similar thing like that. And they also did that for every single park. So is that really a pointer towards this? Maybe it is, but there's even more evidence. Well, don't forget the fact that they have actually outsourced a lot of other things only a few months back, including the departments of cleaning, building maintenance, security, waste management, and landscaping. And when you go through all of those things I've listed, you realise that that is practically the entire park that's been outsourced at this point. And why would you outsource all of those departments only at Alton Towers? It's just weird. Sounds like they're gearing up to sell off that park, methinks. But as much as that is a huge piece of evidence, there's also the more noticeable ones that could or couldn't have something to do with it, with the main one being their next huge multi-million-pound project, aptly named Project Horizon, no longer seeming like it is actually on the horizon. Hey, see what I did there? They had this huge indoor roller coaster planned, and it would be in this massive warehouse with hopefully lots of cool elements and hopefully lots of theming, and it would have had this really cool queue line, and it would have been in its own little corner next to David Walliams and where the dungeons was. We all thought, oh, that would be amazing for the park, they need an indoor roller coaster, that would be awesome. And it's just never happened. Literally, it was supposed to be open already. Like, it would have opened at the start of this year, or it would be very far in the construction progress, ready to open next year. But is there any construction anywhere? Hell no, there's not. I mean, all the documents and the planning permission and everything has probably run out by now, and there's been no sign of them trying to extend that. Which maybe the plans just fell through, or maybe even Merlin decided to start planning it, and then halfway through pulled the plug and thought, we're not going to be owning this park by the time that opens. We've got other smaller ideas to work on first, and then we'll give it over and someone else can sort the next coaster out. But I don't know, that is a bit of a stretch. But something that isn't a stretch is a recent addition to the actual park's entire terms and conditions. And it's very interesting. Supposedly, a new line of text was very recently added to Section 4 of the park's terms and conditions. And it sort of states around it about rides being closed on certain days and maybe the theme park being closed. But now there's an extra line that's been added that reads, Alton Towers resorts ceasing to be owned or controlled by Merlin. Now, just to make it fair and informational, they have actually added that to all of the different parks, such as Chessington, Legoland, and Thorpe Park's terms and conditions as well. So any of them could be on the chopping block too. But if this is actually a recent update to them, it's very interesting that they've just decided to stick that in now, and there has to be a reason they've snuck it in there. So with all of this information, it's not certain that they will be selling it, but it seems very likely. But let's say it is being sold off. Who would it go to? Who would want to operationally purchase the Alton Towers Resort, the ATR without Spa? Well, there is a bit of an underlying issue that I do think a lot of theme park companies would come to and think, maybe not. And that is what I talked about earlier, the fact the land of Alton Towers isn't owned by the purchaser. Presumably, if you buy a theme park, you kind of want to own the land that it's on. That might bring up some issues. I know Alton Towers is very iconic, and I know a lot of theme park companies would want to buy it, but realistically, there might be better options out there. So who would buy it if they had the chance? And I'm being realistic here. I'm not going to say, oh, it could become a Disney park because they've already got a castle in the middle. For your information, it's actually a stately home or a historic manor house, not a castle. But there are various theme park companies operating around the world. You've got the likes of Six Flags and Cedar Fair that are operating a lot of theme parks in the sort of northern and southern American areas. And as much as they do pump a lot of money into their parks, I don't think Alton Towers is the right theme park for them. They love building like 300-foot coasters and all these tall drop towers and pendulum swinging rides. Meanwhile, at Towers, they couldn't even build above the trees, which is technically another issue if a company wanted to buy it, but I feel like some would look past that. Also, predominantly in America, you have Herschend parks. They own the likes of Dollywood, Silver Dollar City, and Silverwood, which they've just purchased. Who's to say they won't want to try their hands in Europe and the UK with Alton Towers? Universal? No, they're coming to Bedford. And there's quite a few in Europe that have been rumoured and actually have sort of come up in conversation, such as Park Reunidos. Sorry, I'm so bad at pronouncing things. The company that owns Park Warner Madrid, Movie Park Germany, Tusenfried, Mirabilandia, and Blackpool Zoo, thus showing that they have stepped their foot slightly into the UK, so they know what they're doing with the market there, and they know what they're doing with the parks around Europe, because some of those parks are actually really good fun. Would Alton Towers suit them? Again, I don't know. Maybe it would be a nice new challenge for them, and would they do a good job at running it? Maybe. You just never know for certain, although I do know that CDA, the Compagnie des Alpes, I need to stop, would probably do a good job of running it because they own the likes of Park Asterix and the Wallaby Parks, and as much as the Wallaby Parks are more sort of down the Thorpe Park route, Wallaby Belgium has some really good coasters with some great theming, and then Park Asterix is just growing and growing every year, so who's to say they couldn't do that at Alton Towers? The Mack Family is another rumoured one, those of course who own the Mack Rides company and own Europa Park. They could really do a lot of good for Alton Towers, but I don't know if they'd want to step outside of that sort of zone that they're already in. I don't think it would happen. Or the park that I would love to see come over to the UK and sort of renovate Alton Towers and make it even more magical, as much as it's not owned by an investment company or a park group or anything, would be Efteling in the Netherlands. Now, I know that is so unlikely, but if they ever did want to expand into another park elsewhere and sort of take that sort of fairy tale vibe and the magical vibe, Alton Towers is the perfect place to do that. They're very similar parks in that respect, and I would love to see what they would do if they did come over, but that's one of those ones that's like a dreamlike scenario, and I don't think that will happen, sadly. There are many options there, but all of them might be wrong. It could literally just be some random billionaire that buys it. It could be a bigger or smaller company that's trying to step their foot in the door of the UK market, or let's treat it like Roller Coaster Tycoon. I'm going to buy the park, remove Rita, and then sell it again. We just don't know, and until we do find out through fact, We don't know. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on the potential selling of Alton Towers. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my weekly news series where I'll be keeping you up to date on whether or not Alton Towers does get sold or not. And make sure you go and check out the merch that I'm releasing for pre-order tomorrow. Thank you for watching.